If you could turn your attention to the board, Mr. Martin's gonna go here.
So I'll be talking about the Electoral College, like you said. Just to start, do you guys know anything about the Electoral College at all? Or like presidential elections? I know we just had one, so it's fresh. Should be fresh. Not anything. So the Electoral College is, so like if you hear the Electoral College, you think of like a college, but it's not what it is. It's the process of electing a president. Usually there's two presidential nominees. There could be more like independent or libertarian candidates, but they usually don't get much of a vote. So each state has electors, as you can see on the board. Like Kansas has like 6, California has like 55, Wyoming has 3. Like all these states have different numbers of electors, and what that is each state's political parties select a certain amount of electors based off their political parties, and they get nominated. The total number of electoral votes is 538 throughout the whole country, which is the sum of all U.S. senators, which is 100, U.S. representatives, which is 435, and then 3 electors for Washington, D.C. To win the presidency, a candidate must receive 270 electoral votes, which is a majority. Distribution of electoral votes by state. So the more people in a state, the more electoral votes. So you see like California and Texas, California is 55 and Texas is 40. Those are the 2 most populated states, so they're going to have the more electoral votes. Whereas a state like Kansas, which we're in, is 6. And then, so the least amount a state can have is 3. I think Wyoming has 3 on there. And so it really just varies. If you live in a state that has a lot of people, you'll have a lot of electoral votes, and you live in a state with not as much people, there'll be less electoral votes. For these states, it's a winner-takes-all system. So each state, the popular vote in that state wins that state electoral votes. So like in Kansas, Donald Trump won the popular vote in Kansas, so he won all 6 of those votes. It's like that in every state except for Nebraska and Maine, which we'll get into here in a second. But yeah, each state. So California, this election, Harris won California, so she got the popular vote in California and got all 55 votes in California. Talking about Nebraska and Maine, so like as you can see, like right here, Nebraska has 3 different things and then 2. So those 3 represent districts, and each one of those districts, just like the states as a whole, the popular vote in each one of those districts wins that electoral vote. And there's 3 of those districts, and then the rest of the state, which is the 2 electoral votes, is the popular vote for the rest of the state. So like they can split in those districts, like Trump won 2 of the districts, Harris won 1, and then the rest of the state, Trump won the popular vote, so you got the rest of the electoral votes. Swing states are important too. Swing states, like the swing states this time around was Georgia was a big one, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada. Those ones were the big ones really this election. As you can see, Trump won all of them, but the reason they're called swing states is because they kind of go back and forth. Like in 2020, Joe Biden won all of those states. In 2016, Trump won most of them, so it just depends on who turns out in those states, Republican or Democrat. They can go either way. As in like a state like Kansas, so we know it's going to be a Trump or red state. In those states, those people, their vote kind of matters a little bit more because it can go either way. It's important, the 270 number, because that's the majority. So like I said earlier, the 538 electoral votes in the whole nation, the majority of that is 270. So the nominee that gets the 271st wins automatically. So it could be like really close, razor thin, like 268 to 270. But as long as that person or a person reaches 270, then that person will win. Like Trump obviously was this time around got the 270, and she didn't really get too close. So it's kind of a landslide. But in 2020, it was the opposite way, where the Democrat Joe Biden won the 270 before Trump did. There can be a scenario where a person can win the electoral college but then lose the popular vote. That kind of creates controversy a little bit, just because some people think that the popular vote should hold more standing, but it doesn't really. Like in 2016, Trump won the presidency, but Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So, there's an argument there. There's kind of some controversy with the electoral college, like I was just talking about. Some people think that the popular vote should win the presidency, which it does make sense. But it's just kind of not the way it is with the electoral college. It's more of a state-focused way of doing things instead of just a nationwide vote. But it makes it tough too, because if you live in a state like Kansas or like California, you know what color it's going to be, if it's going to be Democrat or Republican. So if you're like a Republican in California, or if you're a Democrat in Kansas, you kind of don't have too much say. I mean, you can vote, but it really doesn't matter a whole lot, because you know your state is going to go red or blue. But that's where the swing states, they kind of can decide the entire election. Like this time around, Georgia was won by Trump, but Georgia was a big reason why Trump lost in 2020, because it was blue. So those states in particular have a lot of say in each election, and some people would say that maybe too much say, because I mean it can come down to certain people in Pennsylvania, and if they vote one way or another, the whole country has to be okay with that, kind of. And it can create some controversy, but it's the way it's been done for a long time now. I don't think it's going to change, even though in some scenarios it probably should. But one thing I'm going to have you guys do, so it kind of makes it easier because you guys are in groups, but if you guys can pick a state and research it a little bit, and then here in a little bit kind of discuss your state, but pick a state, research it, research the history, which way it's voted a little bit, and then if it's changed at all in recent years, so if it's kind of like a swing state or not, and then also how many electoral votes does it have. You guys can research that in your little groups. You guys want to share your state a little bit? You guys can go first since we were talking about it in this group.
What? No.
Like, what your state is, which way it's usually voted.
We picked Florida, but they were, before 1948, they were mostly Democrats, but then since 1952 to now, they have been mostly Republican. But up here, it says Florida's population has expanded over the past 70 years, and its electoral importance has grown with it. From 8 electoral votes at the end of the World War II to 29 during 2010, the state gained 30th electoral vote after the 2020 census, surpassing New York for the third most.
Yeah. If you remember, the population matters a lot, because the more people, the more electoral votes. But
yeah, they're mostly Republican, obviously in cars.
right. Yet Florida's interesting because Obama, whenever he was running in 2008 and 2012, he kind of dominated Florida.
Yeah, they did go for Obama.
Yeah, and then 2016 was kind of surprising because Trump really wasn't supposed to win it, but he did. And then ever since then, it's kind of been more so right-leaning. Like this time around, Trump won like 56% to 45 or something like that. So he kind of.
Yeah, they're the percentage. It's kind of even all around. Like
Yeah.
it's just split almost directly down the middle, 40s and 50s.
Right.
Like this one is 50 to 49.1%.
Yeah, Florida, it usually is pretty in the middle, but the last election, last Tuesday was super red compared to what it has been in the past.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
We did Alaska. They first started in 1960, and ever since then, the electoral votes has been 3. The only time they voted Democrat was in 1964.
They've been Republican the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those smaller states, so it makes sense why they have 3. See, like Florida is way more important than Alaska in the electoral college. Like Alaska, at the end of the day, like if it's a razor thin, like super close election, or then Alaska might matter. But since like if it's anything not close at all, then Alaska really is just another state. Like 3 points, that doesn't really matter. Like Florida though, I mean, what was it, 16 electoral votes?
Something like that.
Yeah, 30, my fault, 30. See, 30 matters a lot more than 3. That's, that's a lot. That's 27 more electoral votes, which helps a lot on the way to 270, the majority to win. So yeah, that just shows like people in Alaska, they've been voted red every 4 years except for one time. So if you're a Democrat in Alaska, I mean, how much does your vote really matter? And then Florida, your vote kind of matters a lot more because, I mean, it can go either way. This time around, it was way more red, more Republican. But, I mean, Florida has been blue in the past. And I think if a well-liked Democrat came in and did well in Florida, that person could carry Florida over back to the blue side, the Democrat side. So that just goes to show how important like a state like Florida is compared to a state like Alaska. But, all right, guys.